For centuries, the origin of the Kyrgyz people seemed settled, neatly filed away in textbooks and academic lectures. They were described as a Turkic, nomadic people of Inner Asia, children of the mountains, the steppes, and the vast winds of Central Eurasia. Their history was tied to horses, yurts, epic poetry, and endless migration across the heart of the continent. But history, as it turns out, is never truly settled. In the early 21st century, a series of DNA studies, quiet at first, almost unnoticed by the wider public, began to challenge the old narrative. What these tests revealed shocked historians, geneticists, and ordinary people alike. The results suggested something almost unthinkable to many: a significant part of the Kyrgyz genetic heritage carried unmistakable traces of ancient Europeans. Were the Kyrgyz, long considered purely Asian, in fact partly European? And if so, how did this happen? This is the story of how a DNA test forced the world to reconsider thousands of years of human history. The old story, what we thought we knew. For generations, scholars taught that the Kyrgyz originated in the regions of southern Siberia and the Altai Mountains. Ancient Chinese chronicles mentioned a people called the Gekan or Jenkin, believed to be early Kyrgyz tribes living north of the Great Wall. Later sources described their migration southward into what is now modern Kyrgyzstan. They were categorized as Turkic-speaking, culturally connected to other steppe nomads like the Turks, Mongols, and Uyghurs. Their physical appearance, often featuring lighter hair and eyes compared to neighboring populations, was explained away as a result of later mixing or simple natural variation. Few questioned this framework. After all, language, culture, and geography seemed to support it. Then genetics entered the conversation. The first crack in the wall. The turning point came not from historians, but from geneticists. In the 1990s and early 2000s, advances in DNA analysis made it possible to trace human ancestry with unprecedented precision. Scientists could now examine Y chromosomes, mitochondrial DNA, and autosomal markers to identify ancestral lineages stretching back tens of thousands of years. When Kyrgyz DNA samples were included in broader Eurasian studies, researchers noticed something strange. Certain genetic markers common among ancient European populations, especially those associated with Indo-European groups, appeared repeatedly in Kyrgyz samples. These markers were not rare anomalies. In some regions and clans, they appeared at surprisingly high frequencies. At first, researchers assumed contamination or statistical error. But the results kept repeating. Different laboratories, different sample groups, same conclusion: something in Kyrgyz ancestry did not fit the standard Asian-only model. The European markers. To understand the shock, one must understand what these markers meant. Some Kyrgyz men carried Y chromosome haplogroups commonly associated with Eastern European and Eurasian steppe populations, including lineages linked to the ancient Scythians, Sarmatians, and Indo-European pastoralists. Even more surprising was the presence of genetic traits linked to the Yamnaya culture, a Bronze Age civilization that lived on the Pontic-Caspian steppe around 5,000 years ago. These people are widely believed to be among the ancestors of many modern Europeans. The Yamnaya were tall, fair-skinned, often light-eyed, and highly mobile. They spread across Europe and parts of Asia, carrying not only their genes but also their languages, technologies, and social structures. The idea that the Kyrgyz shared ancestry with these people was revolutionary. It suggested that the Eurasian steppe was not a barrier between Europe and Asia, but a bridge, a forgotten world of the steppes. To make sense of the DNA, historians had to look deeper into the past. Long before modern borders, before even recorded history, the Eurasian steppe was home to countless migrations. Peoples rose and fell, merged and vanished. Cultures overlapped like waves in the ocean. The ancient Scythians, described by Greek historians as light-haired and fierce warriors, once ruled vast territories stretching from Eastern Europe deep into Central Asia. Archaeological finds in Kyrgyzstan and neighboring regions revealed burial mounds, weapons, and artwork nearly identical to those found in Ukraine and southern Russia. Then came the Saka, the Wusan, and other Indo-European or mixed populations, many of whom lived precisely where the ancestors of the Kyrgyz later emerged. Over time, Turkic-speaking tribes arrived, mixing with these earlier inhabitants rather than replacing them. Language changed faster than blood. The Kyrgyz, it now appeared, were not the descendants of a single people, but the heirs of many civilizations layered across millennia. Physical clues that were ignored. In hindsight, the signs were always there. Travelers and ethnographers had long noted that many Kyrgyz possessed features unusual for East or Central Asia. light brown or even blonde hair, gray, green, or blue eyes, tall stature and narrow facial structures. Russian explorers in the 19th century frequently remarked that some Kyrgyz looked almost European. These observations were often dismissed as colonial exaggerations or the result of limited intermarriage. But DNA does not exaggerate. It remembers. The DNA test that went viral. The real public explosion came when a popular genetic testing company released anonymized regional data. Journalists noticed that many Kyrgyz users were receiving results showing unexpectedly high European ancestry percentages, sometimes 30%, 40%, or even more. Social media erupted. Some celebrated the findings, seeing them as proof of a rich and complex heritage. Others rejected them outright, accusing the tests of being biased or politically motivated. Debates raged online. Are we Europeans now? Does this change who we are? Was history lying to us? The answer, as always, was more complicated. What DNA can, and cannot, tell us. Genetics does not define culture, identity, or belonging. It only tells a story of movement, mixing, and survival. The Kyrgyz are not Europeans in the modern sense. They are not Slavic, Germanic, or Romance peoples. Their language, traditions, and worldview are deeply rooted in Turkic and Central Asian heritage. But genetically, they carry echoes of ancient Europeans who once roamed the same lands, long before Europe and Asia were even distinct concepts. In truth, the DNA test did not rewrite history. It revealed the parts history forgot. Why this discovery matters. This revelation challenges more than just Kyrgyz history. It undermines the simplistic idea that human populations are neatly separated by continents or races. The steppe was the world's greatest melting pot long before cities existed. The Kyrgyz story proves that Europe and Asia have always been connected, not divided. Peoples moved freely, married across cultures, adopted new languages, and reshaped themselves again and again. Modern identities are recent inventions. Our genes are ancient travelers. Resistance and acceptance. Not everyone welcomed the new narrative. Some nationalists feared it diluted Kyrgyz identity. Others worried it would be misused politically or culturally. A few scholars resisted, clinging to older models that emphasized linguistic history over genetic evidence. But over time, resistance softened. Younger generations, especially, embraced the idea that their ancestry was vast and powerful, stretching from the forests of ancient Europe to the peaks of the Tian Shan. Schools began cautiously updating curricula. Museums redesigned exhibits. Academic conferences debated not whether the Kyrgyz had European ancestry, but how much and from which periods. A people of the crossroads. Today, many Kyrgyz scholars describe their people as children of the crossroads. Neither purely European nor purely Asian. Neither entirely East nor entirely West. They are the living proof that civilizations do not replace one another, they blend. The DNA test did not turn the Kyrgyz into Europeans. It reminded the world that Europe once extended far beyond its modern borders, and that Central Asia was never isolated, it was central to everything.